And we so far have no members of the public.
All right, well, they were aware. So let's call the roll. I see Steve, I see Hayden, Norma, Franklin, and Kevin, and myself. Does anyone, and of course the mayor is here and Harry Glazer is here. Is anyone aware of anyone else being here?
Nope.
Oh, okay. Then I will make, I don't remember what Carolyn said we were supposed to do. Am I supposed to present last month's minutes for questions? Does anyone have any questions about last month's minutes? Kevin, go ahead.
Just a small change. For the community outreach subcommittee, we may have said that we were talking about having a public meeting in June, but we were really thinking late July. We're going to be having a couple of stakeholder meetings before that and would like to have those under our belt before we have a public meeting.
Okay, was that in last month's minutes?
Yes.
Last month's
Oh,
minutes
okay.
had us, I think, down for June, and probably be
Okay.
better if it could be amended to July.
All right. Any other changes to last month's minutes? All right, hearing none, can I have a motion? I will make a motion to approve last month's minutes with the notation that Kevin just added about the Community Outreach Committee's report.
I'll second.
All right, can we vote then? I vote in
All in favor?
All in favor.
Aye.
All right, that was unanimous. And by the way, I think Harry is taking the notes for tonight's meeting, is that right? Or are you doing it one last time, Norma?
I'm not doing it tonight.
Okay,
We
so
spoke about
Harry, would
that.
you mind? All right, I think then that leads us right into our next item, which is, unfortunately, I've received no volunteers to be the next rotating secretary. Harry, you could also note that I believe Councilwoman Foster has joined us.
Oh, right.
I'll welcome her when she actually appears. Welcome, Elsie. And silence. Okay. So I haven't had anybody step up, and I know I can't do it because I'm one of the lucky to be one of the co-chairs of the council, and Antoinette is also ineligible to be the secretary. I'm pausing here to see whether somebody, I know Norma could vouch for the fact that it's not a completely undoable task. And I really had in mind that we would rotate this among the membership on, just to handle it for about 3 meetings at a time and then rotate it to the next person. I think that's what we approved. So
I can try the next 3.
we would really appreciate that, Franklin, unless somebody else wants to contest it. I'm not
I
imagining that.
I think what we had said at the beginning was that Natalie was going to be the second one, but I don't know what her status is right now.
I
know she has a
can't,
busy
I
schedule now.
also sort of remembered that. I didn't want to say that, but Natalie has had some things come up that has led her to have to, this will be in our committee report, but she had to step down from our working group due to some obligations outside of the council. And I just did not want to presume that she would be able to fulfill this additional obligation. And she's not here tonight. So why don't we put her down as tentatively next? And I will make a motion to approve Franklin being the secretary for the next 3 meetings, not including this one, which Harry is covering since he's already started. Can I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, all in favor? All right, unanimous again. Okay, congratulations.
Thank you, Franklin.
I'll try to keep
and
the bar
thank you.
high, Norma.
And thank you, Norma, for stepping up for that first round
thank
and
you.
eating your.
I mean, to be fair, I think Harry did most of
Harry will make sure that's included in the minutes. Okay, so I have down on the agenda next, status report on the vacancy. I think I can give this set. I don't think we have filled that last vacancy, Mayor, correct?
Correct, and I'm also trying to get a teen representative. The person who we thought was volunteering, that actually fell through. So I'm sorry to report we don't have any teen or another person to fill the last spot yet.
All right. So we'll, Norma, did you have something?
So we still need one more HRC person.
Oh.
I had asked, so I just wanted to give you an update. I asked one of the members who I thought would be a perfect fit for this council, but unfortunately her schedule is way too busy right now, so she's unable to do it. So I'm going to ask at the next meeting, since we do have at least 5 new members. I'm not too familiar with them, so that's why I haven't just asked them. I'm waiting to see like who the members are and how they fit in the group, to see if that'd be a good fit.
Okay, so how
this
many,
council.
how many of us are actually, I'm not obviously, but is it just you, Norma, that's on the HRC?
Yeah, there used to be John Wentz, but he had to step down.
Okay. So, and we're supposed to have 2?
Yes,
Okay, so yeah, we have any teens on the HRC?
we did at one time.
We're
Okay.
working on that too.
Okay, maybe we can kill 2 birds with 1 stone. All right, so is any other comments on the vacancy? Oh, here's Natalie.
Huh. Hi, Natalie.
So we can note that Natalie has joined the meeting.
Got it.
Thanks for joining us, Natalie.
Sorry to be late. I just got home from work.
That's totally understandable. And Natalie, just to catch you up, we talked about you just a little bit because we needed to fill the vacancy in the secretary position for the next quarter. And we had sort of tentatively put you in there a few months ago, but I understood because of some of your obligations that this might not be the best time for that. I'll give you one chance, even though we approved Franklin to fill that spot. I will give you a chance to step up and do it, but otherwise we're putting you sort of on for next.
Does that include tonight?
No, Harry's doing it tonight. It would be for the next 3 meetings. And again, Franklin has already been approved to do it. So if you don't want to do it for the next 3 months, you can do it in the fall. Or later in the fall.
Let me do it in the fall because I actually am going to be away. I'm going to be unable to come to the meeting in July, but in the fall, I should be able to do it.
All right. Thank you for that. Okay, so I think nobody else had needed to say anything about the vacancy, correct?
Actually, I can reach out to Ashton Burrell, both, HRC member wise and team member wise. Maybe he might have some suggestions.
Yeah, I went to Ashton originally, Harry and I did, for the teen representative. And we thought we had someone from Zone 6, but it fell through. So, our teens have had a really difficult year.
Yeah.
So that may have something to do with the lack of, people not being anxious to get involved in something right now. So, you can feel free to talk to Ashton again, but.
Yeah, can't hurt.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
All right, anything else on the vacancy? All right, so jumping into the heart of things, we have we have written reports this week from the 4 working groups. Hopefully, everybody was able to peruse them. Unfortunately, because Reverend Moss was not able to join us this evening, she would have been giving the communications report. Kevin, you mentioned her not being present. Is that because she asked you to give the report for the group?
No, I think she didn't. And actually, I think Natalie might be better placed because Natalie's been in the thick of trying to get people for these listening sessions that we're doing. So I'll defer to Natalie unless you want me to do it, Natalie.
You can go for it. I think we've both been working on it, but
Yeah, well, but you've been contacting people, might have a
Okay.
sense of what kind of response we're getting.
We
okay.
do also, just one note before we start with the reports, we do have the reports now have been circulated among the group in writing. Of course, obviously the public, if anybody from the public is here, has not seen that stuff.
No
It sounds
member-
like nobody from the public is here
Yeah.
tonight, which is actually a little, I mean, that's a little unusual even for us. I hope that everybody has the right link, but
Your Nielsen ratings were going down.
usually in the past, if somebody wanted to join and didn't have the link, they would just send me an email or something, and that hasn't happened. So I think maybe we're just boring everybody.
It's summer.
It is summer, yes. Not technically, but yes.
No, not technically. Mindset.
Anyway, go take it away, one of you, Kevin or Natalie. Go ahead and give us a report just for the sake of.
By the way, Jeff, just for a
Yeah.
point of order, the reports that are coming in now are the ones that were sent out in advance. And so I'm going to put them into the minutes.
That would
as
be
reports.
fine.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, so later on in the month of June, we have a couple of just private listening sessions scheduled because we realized that one way to learn about what the concerns of the community around public safety, policing, and equity would be to have, not to start off with an open conversation, but to start off with some private conversations with people from different communities, just so that we can get a sense of what they're thinking, what they would like to see from us and from the town government with respect to all these issues that we're tasked with dealing with. So we've reached out to a few people that we know to be leaders in different communities around the town. We asked them to try to think of other people that would represent a kind of a diversity of perspectives within their communities. And so we've gotten some names and we're reaching out to people. I think because for a lot of people, this is either like it's the end of the school year or it's the beginning of summer. So I understand that not everyone is like very excited to be on a Zoom meeting about these topics, but we do have some people who have RSVP'd, and I think we all hope that it'll be kind of the beginning of more conversations that we're able to have as members of this committee with members of the public, so that they understand what it is that we're trying to do and that we're invested in, and so that we can all understand how do they see things and what do they want to see moving forward and what do they want from our work. So we'll be reporting back in July about what we've learned at those meetings and what our next steps are. But I think broadly the next steps after that will be sort of to synthesize what we hear from people, bring that to you all, and to do an event that is open to the public where we can start having a kind of a larger open community conversation about these topics. Kevin, did I miss anything?
Yeah, that sounds great.
I think that's a great first step to get information. It's less intimidating also, so that's a good thing. But you did remind me of something I forgot. I should mention again to this group. Harry, you probably know the date better than I do. Just to put on your radar, the next open police community meeting where people can express some of the things that, maybe they'll be expressing to you or not, or, is coming up.
Thursday.
So we can probably use your help in getting the word out about it. The chief and the captain this time are going to spend most of the meeting on questions and answers, which was based on some of the input we got after the last meeting. What's the date, Harry?
Thursday.
This Thursday.
What time is it?
7, I believe.
I just had a question, Natalie or Kevin. Is there any way, like any information that you want to send with that to us that we can maybe help spread the word for anybody? You know, like some of the churches we may attend or something, or just, you know, I guess if there's any information you want us to help sort of spread the word for these public conversations, they could contact.
Are you talking about the listening sessions or the chief's?
Oh,
forum?
sorry, sorry. I'm going back to the listening sessions.
Is that maybe I'm wrong, but my understanding is that the listening sessions were sort of going to be by invitation, or is that not right?
That's correct. I do think it's a question that Kevin and Antoinette and I can discuss about whether we want to extend the invitation to more people and whether we want to ask the other members of this committee for help with that. But it is sort of by invitation, and then the people that we invite could invite other people, but it's not something we're like advertising to the whole public, like everyone come to this. That's going to be further down the line, and we certainly will want everyone's help advertising those more public events.
I was going to ask a similar question, which is, do you want or need any help from the other members of the advisory council in terms of ideas for questions or prompts to any of these folks, or do you have a pretty good sense in mind of what you want to talk about or listen about?
Kevin, I'll let you take that one.
We're beginning to talk about it, so it might be better after the 3 of us or 4 of us have talked it through, that we might then come back and say, why don't you look at what we've come up with? But we're beginning to talk about it. The first listening session is the 16th, right, Natalie?
So this
So-
Wednesday.
Yes.
Yeah, so we may try to circulate something before that, but it'll depend on our being able to get together and at least have an initial discussion among ourselves.
Okay. Well, if you do decide that you want some input, I think the system that Franklin had set up for the CCRB thing was to maybe circulate some kind of Google Doc where people could contribute questions like that. I feel like that could work for this also, if you want input. I trust the working group to do what you need to do community outreach wise, but
No, input would be very useful. I think it's just a matter of, timing. Can we pull it together in time and sort of sort out our own ideas before we then circulate it to the group? We don't
Always
want to
a
give you
challenge.
something that's very, not even half-baked, but quarter-baked.
okay. Anything else from or to the communications and outreach group? All right, I think I paused long enough. The budget working group, can you give us a quick summary, Steve?
Yeah, I mean, not much more than what's in the piece I circulated, but we've been back and forth a little bit with Chief Abrams to try and set up meetings. We've sent him some questions that we've developed for, because there's not a whole lot of detail in the budget, and they don't really have, they don't keep records, in any kind of programmatic way or anything. So it's going to have to be more anecdotal, sitting down with the chief and some of his staff and working through the questions we have to start with. We're trying to set something up for the end of the month. We're trying to, doodled our group to try and find when the 4 of us are available. And then once I get that, I'll go back to the chief and offer him those times. I guess that's about it for that. Unless anybody has questions or.
The only question, I just want to make sure everything, as far as you're concerned, things are going smoothly in terms of communicating with the chief about this stuff. I mean, we've had a pretty decent experience on the policy side of things, but if there's any snags, I think, I assume you can talk to the mayor about it.
Yeah. No, I mean, so far he's, part of the problem was, I was away for a couple of weeks last month, and he had a bunch of people on at training and things like that in the last few weeks. So, finding a time where all of us could make it has been just a bit of a challenge. And hopefully he gave us a bunch of times the end of the month in early July, but I'm away again the first 2 weeks in July. So I'm hoping to get in the end of June before I go. If worst comes to worst, if we can't get it, then I can, zoom in from where I'm gonna be. So it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, but I'd prefer getting it done before I go.
It is, as the mayor said, summer, so it
Yeah.
is posing that challenge.
Just,
Uh,
Jeff, if I could, that was Elsie texting me. She had to hop off she was here in the background, I guess. But she just had to hop off. So I just want everyone to know.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions or needs on the budget? Sounds like we need to push that out to next month's report, and hopefully we'll have something more, but not to express disappointment about it. I'm just segueing awkwardly as always. So I can give a report for the policy and procedure and investigations working group. It is, we did miss a little window, I'm sad to say, but I think, so the emotionally disturbed persons policy, as the police department calls it, was updated before we really had a chance to take a look at it and talk to the chief about it. But we consulted with him about it, and he did express that if there are concerns about the way the policy currently now reads, and I assume the update must have been for some administrative requirement, that if there's any concerns about the way the policy currently reads, he's happy to talk to us about them and further revise it as needed. And we have a meeting. I was going to say we have a meeting set up to talk to him about that, but we really only have the notion of a meeting for the same reasons that Steve mentioned. We've got scheduling issues on both ends, and so we're just trying to get some mutually convenient dates. Same thing is true of the whatever process we're going to go through to talk about the process of investigations within the department without being able to actually review them, for all of the frustrating reasons we've been through previously involving New Jersey's public records laws. But I think the chief and the borough attorney have sort of kicked around a proposal for generating some scenarios and then having the chief walk us through how the department would handle those scenarios using the blank forms that we are allowed to see. And we're going to see if we can get some useful information from that process. We are going to have a meeting about that as soon as we possibly can schedule it, which looks like July at the earliest. And so hopefully we'll have by next month at least an update on where we're at on that meeting. And I mean, since we are going to try to talk about the EDP policy and whether there are any concerns about it, I will try to isolate that policy. And I think I've requested that from the chief, the new policy. And I will, once we get it, we'll circulate it to the group and we'll set up some system for collecting input from the group on any ideas of what we should be discussing with the chief on that. Because I think we all agreed last time it's sort of one of the most important policies as it relates to equity. And does anybody have any questions about our progress in that working group, or any concerns you want to raise or issues you want us to be focusing on?
I
I
mean, the
just
only
have
thing
a
I
quick
would-
question.
Oh, everybody does. Norma, you want to go first?
I just wanted to know who else was in your group.
Oh,
I
I'm
don't-
sorry.
I don't think I
should've-
know.
It's Carolyn and Kevin.
Oh, okay. All right, cool. That's all.
Was that disappointing to you, Norma? No, sorry.
Not at all, but thank you.
Okay, and we're working very well together, and I am informally at least the sort of point person for that working group, and I will say that on our end, most of the delays in terms of getting information from the chief are not on the chief's end. They are completely my fault because of my work schedule. So, but I think we're going to fix that. I'm going to quit my job and work full time on the
I
equity
was just gonna
commission.
say, priorities, Jeff.
Yeah. Anything else? Steve, you had a.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, because the EDPs is one of our big topics on the budget side as well. So, anything you can do to get us a copy of that.
I'll get it to you as soon as I get it. And
Would be
I
great
think the
if you
chief's been in and out and tied up with things, as we all heard. So it was only been a few days since I asked him for the updated policy. But I hope to have it soon, and then I hope to actually look at it. But I will get it to you all so you can all look at it, because I think, I think it is an area of ongoing discussion. And, as we talked about last time, it's something that we all have some ideas on. So anything else?
Jeff,
Oh, sorry, Franklin?
oh, sorry, it's just a quick question. I missed it, but I don't, is this already in effect, the new policy?
In effect, he said it had been distributed to the officers. So I would say yes. I think once they've got a policy, they're supposed to follow it. I don't know, again, I don't know what the change was to the policy or what the impetus for the change was, but my best guess is that it was probably some new requirement that needed to be complied with, and whatever our policy was needed that update. But that's totally speculation on my part. I'm guessing it is not a substantial revision, but
Also, it's
Maybe it
become a
was.
priority of the prosecutor's office. So to your point, they will be also passing down some new policies that we're going to have to follow.
that sounds right. And I don't know, Mary, did you know what the new what the
I do, but
what the
I'm
revision
having
was?
I'm having trouble recalling right now.
Okay. Well, it'll be easy to figure out once we have the documents. So
Yeah,
spending our meeting time guessing about what it might
Yeah.
have been might not be.
I do know that for younger EDP situations, there is a new kit that the police carry in their cars. Sorry, Elsie isn't on here any longer because she knows all the details and the name of that kit. But it
Is
is.
it one of the, is it the sensory kit
Yes,
or something like that?
Yes, and of course I should have known you knew, Jeff. It's been coming in it's very handy for them, and they've already been using it. I know we've had a couple of incidents in town over the last couple of weeks with young people that this sensory kit has been very helpful.
Yeah, and my vague, I only vaguely know about these issues with the sensory kits, but my recollection is that they're particularly designed to deal with people who are autistic,
Mhm.
and that is a sort of up-to-date idea of using something that helps people who get overwhelmed by sensory stimuli or something like that.
Yeah.
That somebody else in the group is probably much more knowledgeable about. There's people in my household who are more knowledgeable about that than I am, but I'm glad to hear that's being incorporated, but it does reconfirm, I think, that there's probably other things more fundamentally about the EDP policy that we would want to be talking to the department about. Anything else on policy and procedure and investigation? I should add, I think in this working group, and I didn't put it in the report, but I believe now that the status of the two bills, one of which was particularly concerning to the policy and procedure and investigations working group, the police transparency bill, I believe that information is now on our website, so that people can follow the progress of those bills if there is progress on those bills. All right, so Franklin, you have a report from our CCRB working group.
Okay, yes. Let me just grab it here. So since our last meeting, there's been a few changes. So Norma has joined our working group. And Natalie, as Jeff mentioned earlier, stepped down to focus on communications outreach and also in relation to scheduling concerns outside of the council as well. We have also been in communication with community members from Asbury Park in regards to who are also looking to start a CCRB there as part of our like research and educating ourselves on this process and how it may look in different scales of depending on the size of the city as well. But because of what's been mentioned a lot already, scheduling conflicts, I mean, everyone's just so busy. So we're hoping to set up a meeting in the coming weeks with them. And then we're also looking out and contacting other individuals to connect with in this ongoing process. We've also been informed of the CCRB bill here, the A4656S2963 by a number of community groups here in Highland Park and New York as well. So we've been trying to gather information from, from all sorts of sectors here in New Jersey. Another thing we wanted to mention too, as part of a discussion point was, and this was circulated, is that in addition to all this, Assemblywoman Angela McKnight, the principal sponsor of the CCRB bill here in New Jersey, 4656, was invited to appear in the work session of the last Borough City Council meeting on June 1st to discuss the CCRBs and the progress in legislation. We wanted to make note, though, that our working group was not informed in advance nor invited to participate in the work session. So we weren't able to ask any questions about the legislation or how its progress might impact any proposals we make here in Highland Park. There's a video available that was made available by the City Council as well. And so you can see the link there. But importantly, we bring this for discussion is because it has implications for the organizational functioning and how we see sort of the co-responsibilities among the MAAC, City Council, and the Mayor's Office as it's been structured through our bylaws in the way we work together. And we wanted to address this because it's important just to we can strengthen our work together in making Highland Park a more equitable place for all. So with that said, I had a few questions for Council Member Foster in terms of this, because just to highlight that Council Member Foster is our council liaison. So I'll just.
But unfortunately, Franklin, she has left the meeting. She wasn't able to join us for the full meeting. So
yes, no, I know. So I'm just going to read the question. So hopefully we can follow up with her as well, and just to make it for all the council members and maybe the mayor can.
If I have some information for you, I'll be happy to share it. I also want to say before you get going, Franklin, that Harry is actually our public information officer. And so one of the things that we could do to avoid not getting information to the committee in a timely fashion is once the borough clerk posts the agendas, can you just forward the agendas to the group so that, once it gets posted, it's up on the website, but that means an extra step for you to have to go find it on the website. What I'm suggesting is that we could probably, at the same time that it gets posted on the website, send it to you.
Okay, that'd be great. Yeah,
Can I ask, I'm sorry, can I ask how far in advance would that be? How far in advance would we have that information?
Not far.
Not very far. So basically, we don't finalize the agendas for whatever reason. In this particular case, we were waiting to hear back from the Assemblywoman on whether or not she could make it. So the agendas get posted, I believe, Friday mornings, right, Harry?
I think the agenda for tomorrow night's meeting was posted this morning.
No, can't be. It has to be 48 hours.
Okay, because I saw it in email, unless it went out, unless it was slated to go out.
Yeah. So generally the rule is 48 hours ahead of time. So to answer your question, Norma, generally, it is posted on Fridays. So it would be Friday that you would get the agenda prior to a council meeting which would be on Tuesday. And your meetings are Mondays. So, but the email to you can go out every other Friday when it gets posted.
I think that would be helpful. And then I know this might be an extra step, but like if it's known that something is in the works, like trying to invite, the sponsor of a bill that is very directly relevant to this group's work, I wonder if it would be possible for us to know that that is a possibility, even if it hasn't been confirmed to the level of like being on an approved finalized agenda.
And that's actually where my specific questions are that I wanted to raise that we discussed, because again, like I mentioned, it has to do with how we work together, and through our, functionally as through our bylaws. So, going off of what Natalie said, I mean, these were my questions to our council liaison, but again, you can also give us your thoughts too, Mayor. But for the first question was like, why weren't we informed that the Assemblywoman was being invited to discuss this, especially given like how we've discussed what our efforts are in the CCRB subcommittee. Related to that, we want to just get clarification in terms of the roles here, like, for example, with the council liaison, if it's the role and responsibility of the council liaison to inform us ahead of time that these efforts are being made that pertain to our work, regardless if we're going to be invited to be there or not, but just let us know.
Yeah. So I think in this particular case, because you are an advisory council to the mayor, I'm going to take the responsibility on in place of the council liaison. The mayor's office also sets the agenda. So we work with the borough clerk who issues the agenda. So in cases like this, I think it probably is more efficient to just, Harry, it's just going to be another thing for you or Shetel to remind me about, to just have it come from my office in this particular case.
So, well, I mean, this also leads to my last question in terms of looking forward, because for us, it's really just a question of clarification of roles. Like, what are going to be our expectations as, as each of our subcommittees are working on a number of things, but like in this case, we have a subcommittee on CCRB specifically, and there was one of the primary co-sponsors. So in the future, what should we be expecting from our council liaison, the mayor, each in terms of informing us, given it pertains to our work? That was a big question that we had in a sense. What are going to be our expectations, especially what we set by bylaws? How should we be working, and who should be expecting this ahead of time? And not necessarily just an agenda, but be like, look, if we're reaching out to this person, I know in our meetings, it pertains to your work as well. That's the type of clarifications that we wanted to try to address today as well as we move forward.
Yeah. So that's, I don't want to overpromise something that I'm not going to be able to live up to. So because there are certainly times when things happen like at the last minute, like the last minute before Friday morning. And I have like 1,000,001 things going on at the same time here. So there's a likelihood it may slip through the cracks sometimes. But that's why I keep Harry around. Only one of the many reasons, Harry. I'm hoping that between Harry and myself, we can make sure that when something comes up, we get some information to, I guess, Jeff or Antoinette as soon as possible. so that they can filter it down to the committees. Jeff, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, if I could just put a little bit of a finer point on it. I mean, I have some questions. I'm on that working group. I'm always happy to convey to any of the working groups, as is Antoinette, and I'm sure any of the leader, you know, I don't like to use the term leader, I guess, because everybody's equal on these working groups. But the point people on the working groups, you know, nobody's going to object if Harry or you, Mayor, reach out to them and give them a heads up about something like this.
Okay.
But in this particular situation, there's like 2 or 3 different issues sort of combined in what happened. One is, obviously, this is an issue we're very attuned to because we're starting to come to the realization that this bill in particular is particularly crucial to the work that you've asked us to do as an equity council and as a working group, because some of the things that we might like to do or we might like to recommend that you do are pretty much contingent on some version of this bill passing. And, you know, an opportunity, I mean, I'm sure Assemblywoman McKnight is probably making herself available to a number of different organizations and groups around the state in an effort to move this bill forward, but we are not necessarily the people that would have the clout to sort of say, hey, you want to meet with us? We're 3 members of a working group for, you know, this town. Whereas, you know, once we sort of had her, quote unquote, here in Highland Park, I think she was actually like in North Carolina or something, but it was a key opportunity to have her attention on Highland Park and be able to ask the kind of questions that we might have about where things are going with the bill and how it will affect things. So that stings as a sort of missed opportunity. The second point being, it was on the work session. It was in the work session agenda, meaning if we weren't going to be either asked in advance, like, do you have any questions you want us to pitch to the Assemblywoman, or any comments that you would like us as a council or as the mayor to make, then we would have no opportunity, because the members of the public don't have an opportunity for public comment after the work session. And then third, of course, it was because of, I assume because of the last minute question of whether she would actually make it. It was on the work session agenda as civilian review boards. There was no item in the agenda that actually alerted anybody in the public that the key sponsor of this bill would be present for the meeting. So even if anybody had wanted to make a public comment to, you know, in advance of it or afterwards, that really wasn't, you know, highlighted. So I mean, I will admit, I once again dropped the ball and didn't read the agenda that I got by email for the meeting. So I really need to do that. And I think we should all be doing that. If we see something on the agenda that has some element of our role in it, we do need to be proactive. And, you know, again, I'm welcome to the mayor reaching out to me about an issue that's coming up, and I'm always open to, and I'm sure Antoinette is open to, members of the group saying, hey, this is going to be on the agenda for the next borough council meeting. Can somebody get in touch with the mayor or with Councilwoman Foster or with Harry and find out what's going on this issue? That we should be doing that. That's part of our job too. But I do think, you know, this felt like a missed opportunity where, and some of the, and sorry, Mayor, I'll wrap it up in just a second, but if you watch the video, I think part of the concern, for me at least, was that some of the particular questions from members of the Borough Council reflected questions that I think that it would have been good to have some advanced discussion of, or maybe an opportunity to respond on our end, just to say, okay, well, we've been looking at this a little bit, and here's why we might be concerned about this, or here's why. And so I think there's an opportunity here with the creation of this council for some collaboration using the work that we're doing to inform what the council and the mayor are doing. And it raises questions to me. And I know you and I have talked about this, Mayor, but it raises concerns to me that we're going to be doing a whole lot of work. I know Franklin in particular is doing a whole lot of work to research this question. And at the end of the day, we're not necessarily expecting that every recommendation that we make about CCRBs is just going to be rubber stamped and adopted by you and the Borough Council. But I do think it would be good to feel like we're working together in the beginning of the process so that we're not just dumping a bunch of recommendations that are not, that we've never discussed or talked about.
Well, I hear what everybody is saying. I want you to know that. Understand that my main goal was convincing the council that when this comes up for a vote, it needs to be voted yes. And so that's what I was focusing on. As I said before, I'm going to take the responsibility for it not filtering out to you guys because I was sort of singularly or whatever, focused on the work I need to do to get the council to vote positively on supporting this. But
You say supporting this, you mean supporting the bill?
Yes,
Supporting the resolution to support the bill?
correct.
Okay.
Like that's why I'm saying, if I can work with Harry to make sure that when things are coming up that are topics that you all are addressing, that we get the word out as quickly as we possibly can.
Appreciate that. I'm sure we all appreciate it. I do think, and I know that we're scheduled to talk about this too, but at some point, but I do think it raises the issue that I started with, which is that, I think there's an opportunity here for the council to include more public input and feedback in the work session stuff where a lot of the meat of what you do gets done. And I know that there's an element where that you fear it might interfere with what the getting the work done part of the work session. But I don't think that we're the only board or commission or volunteer group in the borough that might like to have some ability to react in real time to what is being said and asked about at the work sessions. But I veered off topic a little bit. Did anybody else have anything to say about this, about our working group report that Franklin gave, or any of these questions?
The only thing I have to add is, and I sent around the flyer to everybody last week, but Angela Knight's going to be presenting at the New Brunswick area branch of the NAACP's meeting tomorrow night, along with Rick Robinson, who's the state conference criminal justice chair and the Newark criminal justice chair. So, and typically there's not a lot of time at the end for questions, but there's usually some time at the end of the panel discussion for questions. So it's maybe an opportunity at least to, get a word or two in with the Assemblywoman. And if anybody,
Can you say the time and the date again?
it's tomorrow night, 6:30.
Okay, so just a little bit before
And
the
you-
borough
and you have
council
to-
meeting.
And you have to pre-register. There's a link in the flyer to pre-register for it. If anybody needs it, I can, drop me a note and I'll, send you the link.
Thanks, Steve. Anybody else?
I guess just to to be clear then for like the questions raised in terms of our work expectations going forward, then, so for Mayor, then for anything that's relevant, we will be expecting the information to come from your office and from Harry that pertains to any of the work that the subcommittees are doing.
We're going to make every effort to make sure that happens.
Great, thank you.
Anything else?
I just
Norma?
I just wanted to say, thank you to Jeff for saying what you just said, and expressing, how I was feeling about the situation. But I was just a little concerned about, I know, Mayor, that you mentioned that you wanted to make sure that the council votes yes in support of the resolution and in support of this bill. And I don't know, for some reason that concerns me I know we can't expect all the council members to agree on everything, but to me, this is a pretty important issue. And I'm just concerned about that statement as to what does it take and what do we need to do to speak to the council and make sure that they do support this resolution and the work that we're doing and the work that I think most of the commissions in Highland Park are trying to do as far as equity and policing.
So I don't want you to think that the council doesn't feel the need for more equity in policing. The issues surrounding this particular piece of legislation are not so much that we need CRBs. It's more how the legislation wants to create the CRBs. So that's it, don't think that the council does not believe in the importance of a CRB or police equity. I don't want to give that impression. But there are a lot of details in this legislation, and that's where I know there was some concern.
And I think just to catch up the folks who may not have watched the video yet, I mean, the main question that was raised at the council meeting was Councilman Hale had a question about why the CCRB should be at the municipal level as opposed to strictly at the county level. And raised asked a number of questions about that point and whether there may be downsides to having CCRBs at the municipal level that would be responsible for handling local policing issues. And I think the Assemblywoman did a really excellent job of answering those questions, and I hope was persuasive to Councilman Hale and anybody who was sort of sharing some of his concerns about it. I will say, I think, it reflects Norma's concerns a little bit because that particular question is something that has primarily been put forward by groups that have generally been opposed to the bill and opposed to the project of civilian oversight of local police departments. Which, it was similar to the tenor of the conversation in response to the resolution that we put forward to the council that was ultimately adopted. So I think there's reason, I think reading in between the lines, and I like to say the stuff that's in between the lines out loud. I do think that there's reason for us as an advisory council to be concerned that, we can't just assume that whatever we present to the mayor, even if the mayor agrees with us, we can't just assume that it's just automatically going to have the borough council support. And we need to work to make sure that we not just craft the right kind of proposal, but also make sure that the borough council understands why we are putting forward the kind of proposal we might put forward on this issue or that issue. And I think, unless somebody else has something more to say about this particular issue, I think it dovetails with the next item on the agenda. I'll pause again for a second. But so the next agenda item is about a request, and I am suggesting that we, as a group, we've talked about how do we speak as a group? And one of the ideas that has been put forward, maybe I put it forward, I don't know, in past meetings is if we're gonna have somebody speak in public on behalf of the Equity Advisory Council, they should not just do it sort of extemporaneously and say, I'm on the Equity Council and here's what I think, because it leads to the risk of somebody bringing forward an idea and being interpreted as being on behalf of the Advisory Council when we haven't authorized that. I would like us to authorize Franklin to make a statement at tomorrow night's council meeting, because there is an item on the agenda about CCRBs and this resolution that is going to be voted on about supporting Assemblywoman McKnight's bill. I circulated the resolution this morning, which was when we got it with the agenda in the borough's emails. I think it's important, not because I think that our Equity Advisory Council needs to take a position on every bill in the state and that it would be particularly meaningful necessarily to legislators that our Equity Advisory Council supports it, but just to make sure that the Borough Council understands that we see this bill as critical, at least our working group sees this as very critical to our work. We are, at the mayor's request, putting together or researching a proposal for Highland Park to have some form of civilian oversight. And we've discussed in some of these meetings and a lot of our working group meetings that New Jersey law and particularly the recent court decisions have made it virtually impossible to do a lot of the kinds of civilian oversight that people have in mind. And so if we want to have those options, the assembly needs to pass the bill. And if the mayor wants us to do this work as effectively as we can, I think it would be helpful to get a sense that the Borough Council supports that work. And I think this is a good way to do that. And so I think it would be good if Franklin could make a statement to that effect tomorrow night in the public session of the council meeting, so that the council understands that. And so that, I mean, it's another way, I mean, I don't want to speak for the communications group, but it would be a good way for the public to understand that we are doing this work. There's been some confusion about whether maybe the Borough Council doesn't need to support this kind of resolution because we are already working on it, and we're already, Highland Park's already in the process of creating a CCRB. We've heard that rumor filter back to us in a number of different ways. And it's really something that we have to work on together, and everybody has to sort of be collaborating about it. So that's my spiel. I don't know if anybody else had any thought about whether it would be a good idea or a bad idea to authorize Franklin to make a statement like that tomorrow night.
One thing I would say, Franklin, is to make your statement at the first public comment, which is the section where you talk about anything that's on the ballot, on the agenda. And also it would be before the actual vote.
Okay.
Always better to talk before they vote.
I think it's a good idea, Jeff, for all the reasons that you mentioned. I think it's understandable that the public doesn't have a great sense of what this committee, what purpose it was formed for, and what we're working on. So I think it, I don't want to speak for the communications subcommittee, but from my perspective as part of that subcommittee, I think it's in addition to hopefully getting the outcome that we want for our work with the vote, I think it's positive in terms of helping the public understand what our presence is.
Anyone else?
Just for clarity, Franklin, the statement you're going to make is basically urging the council to adopt this resolution, or is there more to it than that?
Basically urging for support to vote in favor of the bill.
Are you going to explain like that the work that is being done from this committee, and that's why we want. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Just highlighting the connection between the necessity of this bill that's connected to our work. Whatever form it takes, it would necessitate this bill to pass to actually function.
I will add, I want to leave room for other people to make comments. I'll add the other thing that I think this could serve as just if the borough passes this resolution, the next step as contemplated in the resolution is that it be sent to the legislators who are responsible for getting this bill passed. And I think it would be helpful for the mayor and the council as they advocate with legislators to be able to say, look, we've got a community group that's working on this already, and they're telling us we really need this bill. And that, it's just an added talking point to the extent legislators care about what members of the public think. It would be good.
It's an election.
That's my opinion. Yeah. Do our legislators have to be elected?
Yes.
Anybody else?
Jeff, as I understand the bill, it doesn't mandate a CCRB, right? It allows a community to establish one. And I think that's a nice point to get across, because it doesn't then preempt the work of our committee, because the town will still have to make a decision as to whether it wants a CCRB. We will be, looking into whether that's necessary. So we're in no way preempting that decision. We're just simply, in effect, asking the town to support creating a framework that it would allow us to work within it.
That's exactly right, Kevin. And that was my original concern. I had actually sort of quasi opposed our equity council considering, forwarding that resolution to the borough council when it first sort of surfaced in the community. And it was because I didn't want to get out in front of the work that we're doing. And I was thinking like, okay, we haven't really studied whether a CCRB is even a good idea. Why are we asking the borough council to support CCRBs? But this is, as we've studied the issue, in order to even have all the options that we would like to have open to consider, we really need this legislation. So it doesn't commit, and my understanding also of how the bill works is if a municipality does not create a CCRB, their police department would be overseen by at the county level. And the county would have to create a CCRB, but I personally, if I lived in New Brunswick, for instance, I would not necessarily want the Middlesex County CCRB to be overseeing my police department. I would not necessarily trust that the people all over Middlesex County would really understand policing concerns in New Brunswick. And I think that's true of people probably in Highland Park as well. Certainly there may be some places where it would be nice to have more oversight outside of a community over a police department, but to even have the option of local oversight of civilian oversight of police department is, there needs to be this bill in order for that to happen.
Well, and also this bill would give teeth to a CRB in a community because of the subpoena powers and other things. So we, once we decide whether we should have a CRB or not, if we say yes, at least we would then have the ability to actually have real oversight.
Yep, both the subpoena power and also, and this is related to that, but the ability to conduct parallel investigations to the investigations that the police department conducts internally, because currently neither of those things is possible in the finite wisdom of the New Jersey courts. So those two things are, I would think, fairly essential to anything that you could actually call oversight by civilians. And I think, as we discussed, ordinary civilians currently, until the police transparency bill advances, can't really even see what's going on in the police departments until after an investigation is concluded, and even then only when it's resulted in major discipline. So anyway, I'm not hearing a whole lot of, I'm not hearing any concerns right now. Does anybody have a concern about authorizing Franklin to speak tomorrow? And he won't take it personally, I guarantee, if somebody has a concern. But I haven't heard anything to the contrary, so I will make a motion to authorize Franklin to speak on behalf of the Mayor's Equity Advisory Council at the public session of tomorrow night's council meeting in support of the resolution that's on the agenda.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion?
I'll
Oh,
abstain.
No. I mean, good.
Okay, and Harry, go ahead.
Just a thought, in the interest of transparency and also communication, Franklin, if you're going to work from written script, that's something we can post on the Mayor's Equity Advisory Council website, and then that's something that everybody here can point people to in terms of, you know, what the statement was and the thinking.
Harry, I could barely hear you, but were you suggesting that if Franklin prepares remarks that we can then post it on the website?
Mhm.
That sounds fair. So on the motion, we've got a second. All in favor?
I'm abstaining.
All right.
All in
so-
favor?
All right, so I believe we have everyone in favor with the exception that, well, any opposed?
I'm apologizing for being late to the meeting. I had another meeting. It's Carolyn, but I will abstain on this particular
That's
vote.
absolutely fair, Carolyn, and no need to apologize. We all have other things in our lives. So, all right, so I think everyone's in favor with one abstention. Unless you had also abstained, Franklin, I couldn't tell. No, okay. All right. All right, motion carries. All right, it is now time for our public comment. Has anyone from the public appeared in the meeting? All right, then we will not have public comment tonight purely for lack of attendance. And did anyone have any next steps for discussion? I know one next step is we all have to prepare our reports for next time. And everybody, I really appreciate the working groups putting the extra work into those reports. I think it made it better for us to have the ability to discuss things in more detail. Anything else? Kevin, I can't see whether you're raising your hand or just gesturing to nobody.
I was scratching my chin.
Okay, we'll take that next step as well. I don't see any next steps, so I will make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor of adjournment? All right,
Favor.
Thank you all.
continue the good work, everybody.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I'm sorry I was late.
Take care.
Apology accepted.